And I'd like to call this May 23rd meeting of the City Council of Charleston to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregg. Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Brady. Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings. Councilmember Shade. Councilmember Bowden. Councilmember Appel. Councilmember Parker. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. And now if you would like to join us, Councilmember Pell will intro our invocation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not one that gets criticized for not speaking, but given today's events, I didn't feel comfortable giving these remarks. I just feel I don't feel up to the task given what this city has lost. I'll just share one brief anecdote about Chief Reynolds. I know we all have many of them, and we can't spend today doing that. There'll be a time and place for that. But about a month ago, after the shooting in Tennessee with the school, I had a school teacher in my district reach out to me. She was terrified and concerned about safety, and she wanted to know what the city of Charleston was doing to prevent something like that from happening. And I texted Chief Reynolds and I said, Chief Reynolds, somebody's reached out. They'd like to speak with somebody. If you can't do it, I understand. He immediately texted back saying, please connect us. And they spoke, and I have no idea what he was going through at that time, but I bet it wasn't good. But that's the kind of guy Chief Reynolds was. And that teacher who reached out to me was touched by him. And he was somebody who touched all of us in this room, and all of us in this community, and all of us in this region, and all of us in this state. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Chaplain Rich Robinson to offer some more remarks.
I'd like to invite everyone to join me in prayer. Almighty God, there are times within our lives and within our city that time just seems to stop. And this is one of them, that in one way or another, for each and everyone in this great holy city, time has stopped to reflect upon the life and the legacy and just the passion of our chief, Luther Reynolds. God, we ask for comfort upon his family, that you and your spirit in all the ways that you touch be with Caroline and Grace and Luke and the whole family. God, uplift them and give them your comfort. But Lord, especially we thank you that you have showed us what love looks like through Chief, that he lived his love, that he was a cop's cop, that he was a community's cop, that he brought those two together in tandem in beautiful ways. God, we thank you for his legacy of making our community and our police department partners. We thank you, Lord, for the family of CPD that has grown and been nurtured and been loved and cared for by an amazing leader. We thank you, Lord, for our community that cries in this moment in unity, for a leader that had the empathy and the compassion to reach down and touch hearts, to hold hands and to walk forward. And Lord, now in this time, may we all live his legacy, for he has defined policing. He's defined what it looks like for this city and our future. Lord, in this moment, we just offer some silence. May time stop that we can reflect a wonderful servant. Well done, good and faithful servant. May you rest for all eternity. It's in your holy and precious name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, Reverend Robinson, thank you for that beautiful prayer of the many legacies that Chief Reynolds leaves to this community is the love and support of the Charleston Police Department. And I'd like to ask our deputy chiefs, Cheeto Walker, Dustin Thompson, Jack Weiss to join me for just a moment up here. And Cheeto, Deputy Chief Walker would like to make a brief remarks for the Charleston Police Department. Cheeto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on behalf of the men and women of the Charleston Police Department, we just want to say thank you to the mayor, to this leadership body, council, to our community, and to our brothers and sisters from across this country. The support has been overwhelming and definitely needed. I just ask that you keep Miss Caroline and the entire Reynolds family uplifted in prayer as they adjust to this new normal. Chief Reynolds was a faithful public servant who led from the heart. And he did it to the very end. Okay. We're committed to ensure that faith and that drive and protection of this city and taking care of the men and women of the Charleston Police Department continues. But we thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm just gonna add a brief remark myself, and as Councilmember Appel mentioned, there will be a service a week from today where many words, I'm sure, will be spoken. In my statement that I released, I said that ultimately Luther was a man of love. He loved his family. He loved his friends. He loved his life. He loved the city of Charleston. He loved the Charleston Police Department. He loved the brave men and women who helped keep this city safe. But at the bottom line, he loved God. And by that faith, he loved his neighbor. And in thinking of that statement, I was drawing upon my faith tradition, the Gospel of St. Matthew, which is rooted in our Judeo-Christian tradition. And when asked what was the greatest commandments, Jesus replied that the greatest commandment above all was to love your Lord with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. And the second greatest commandment was to love your neighbor as yourself. And I just want to say, Caroline, and to your family, I've never known a human being who exemplified those two great commandments in my life more than Luther Reynolds. He lived it in his everyday, and God rest his soul, and God bless your family, and we'll have more over the next week and at the service. So not to overwhelm you, but I do, just in Luther's honor, ask everyone to please recognize Caroline Reynolds and their daughter Grace, who is with us here today. Thank you and God bless. Thank you. So we have a few other recognitions here this evening. First, I'd like to ask Councilmember Jason Saccharin to come forward along with Jerry Harris. Please join me on the podium. We have a proclamation recognizing Jerome, affectionately known as Jerry. The proclamation reads, whereas the city of Charleston wishes to recognize one of its most dedicated citizens, Jerry Harris, and having a career in public service that spanned 50 years, Jerry has been a public administrator, educator, and social justice advocate. And Jerry Harris is president of the Charleston branch of the Association of the Study of African American Life and History, affectionately known as ASLA. Whereas an advisory board member of the College of Charleston Office of Institutional Diversity, Jerry also serves on the board of directors for the Coastal Community Foundation. He is active with Charleston Freedom School, the International African American Museum, the Charleston Area Justice Ministry. Whereas being involved with the city's boards and commissions, Jerry serves as co-chair of the Charleston Citizen Police Council and was instrumental in the efforts of the Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation, which was amended in 2022 to be the Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission, in which he has served as co-chair. Whereas Jerry organized his family to donate their ancestors' property on James Island near Fort Johnson to the town of James Island for a public park known as Pinckney Park and Playground. And whereas we extend our heartfelt gratitude and deepest appreciation to Jerry for his exceptional service and unwavering commitment to making Charleston a better place for all its residents. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the city, along with City Council, proclaim May 23rd to be Jerry Harris Day in the city of Charleston. Congratulations. This was special request by Councilmember Saccharin, so I'll ask Councilmember Saccharin if he would like to share a word, and then Jerry Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jerry. Before I do, I just want to acknowledge and say Luther and I had exchanged many texts over the years, some about city council, but a lot about food. And I'm going to miss him dearly. I received a text about 3 weeks ago, and Luther, if you're looking down, there's a lunch waiting for you. Yeah, just we still have bills to pay, so we're going to make sure. I just want to thank the mayor and the city for recognizing Jerry. He wears many roles in our community. And before my term ends in January, I wanted to make sure that the city recognized him for all he does for our community and our city. He's been instrumental in the formation and success of the Citizens Police Advisory Council and continues to be a strong voice for criminal justice and police reform in our city. He's worked closely with Luther over the years, and he was instrumental figure on the Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation, which I co-chaired with Councilmember Dudley Gregory. And I currently chair our Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission, which is known as HARC, with Jerry now. It's been my pleasure getting to work with Jerry, as he is measured and he's experienced enough to know when to push and when to pull, and is no stranger to political dynamics. The one thing that stands out with Jerry is that the progress that he makes is done with deliberate patience, and it's at a pace, and he doesn't need to tear others down to make progress on a variety of fronts, and that's rare in politics. Last thing is, Jerry, this is where you prevail, is just creating relationships. And you've been a mentor and a coach and a walking resource of information for me personally, and you're a true leader. And I just want to thank you for everything you do for our city.
This is a difficult moment to be recognized in the face of what our community has lost. But I want to thank you for the unexpected recognition. It's been an honor to serve on various boards and commissions, give me an opportunity to invest as a citizen in this city beyond just paying taxes and voting, which is our obligation. In doing so, I've had the opportunity to gain an appreciation for the opportunities and challenges facing all of us as citizens. It has been said that to whom much is given, much is required. I've had the advantage of a rich James Island family history, going back to the Civil War, a world-class higher education, an extensive career in government, higher education, as well as work in the private and nonprofit sectors. As a retiree now, I have an opportunity to apply to my lessons learned while participating in what my wife, Wendy, commonly and jokingly refers to as my hobby, attending meetings. All of us today are reflecting on the transition of Chief Luther Reynolds, who served his community, providing an example of how to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. The chief and I spent quality time engaged in conversations, practicing what is known as constructive dialogue. As a person with different perspectives, we sought to build new ways to understand and interact with each other, even as we sustained our commitment in our principles and perspectives. It was not about winning the argument or proving each other wrong. His commitment was and remains to be taking action on shared goals and values. This is a portion of his legacy that we all should honor. With that in mind, I think that we should focus on how do we make and promote civility. The notion of constructive dialogue involves principles of not let winning at any cost be driving our behavior. Ask questions to understand the other perspectives. Share your story and other stories. Most importantly, learn how to listen. Make sure that everyone feels heard. It's one thing to say, I hear you. It's something else to demonstrate that you hear. And then finally, find out what we share that's in common. That's our goal in building community. In the memory of Luther, I ask us to commit to build and maintain our community together, to make our community's problems our problems, and to solve them together. Thank you again for this recognition. And remember that service is the rent we pay for our time here on earth. Thank you very much.
We also have this evening a proclamation recognizing National Tennis Month. And would like to invite Bob Pfeiffer, Bill Ennis, D. Mack, Jack Barker, Laurie Yarborough, tennis manager Peggy Bone to join us up on the podium. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, Peggy. Oh. So this proclamation regarding National Tennis Month, whereas the United States Tennis Association, the nonprofit national governing body for tennis, has declared the month of May as National Tennis Month to encourage players, organizations, facilities, others to promote local programs and activities at tennis clubs, parks, and other facilities to showcase tennis and spread the word about the sport and its benefits to help players and prospective players alike find courts and play opportunities in their community. Whereas the Charleston area is recognized nationally for the strength of its tennis community. Y'all, we got a lot going on. We got the Low Country Tennis Association, the Low Country Youth Tennis Association, Charleston Area Ladies Tennis Association, the Credit One Charleston Open, the Charleston Area Adaptive Tennis Community, Charleston Tri-County Elementary and Middle School League, Charleston West Side Tennis Club, all these groups involved in the great sport of tennis. Whereas playing tennis has a positive impact from a host of medical perspectives, both physical and mental, and medical studies have documented that tennis players on average live 9.7 years longer than non-tennis players. You might want to think about that and get out on the court. Almost 10 years, y'all. Okay. Whereas tennis encourages participation from all individuals, regardless of mental and or physical handicaps. Tennis encourages and enables participation across the entire community, and courtesy and good sportsmanship are the norm in the game of tennis. Whereas the city of Charleston has 70 public tennis courts used by adult leagues, recreational players, and youth. And whereas the citizens of the city of Charleston and other Charleston area communities are encouraged to enjoy the sport for a lifetime and support National Tennis Month and the continuing growth of tennis throughout our area. And by the way, did I tell you, we got new lights at both the Maybank Center and the Charleston Tennis Center. They really light those courts up well at night, so you can play during the day, you can play at night. Whereas playing tennis, whether you're 5 or 95, is just plain fun. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the city, along with City Council, proclaim May 2023 as National Tennis Month in the city of Charleston. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Bill Ennis. I'm the president of the Low Country Tennis Association. Mr. Mayor and distinguished council, we extend our appreciation and recognition of National Tennis Month, as well as the extraordinary growth of the Low Country Tennis Association over the last 5 years. We're now the 4th largest tennis league in the United States. Only Orlando, Dallas, and Atlanta are larger than us right now. And that's a tribute. It's a tribute to your support, but also I want to make sure that we recognize the incredible support that we get from the Charleston Recreational Department, led by Lori Yarborough, and behind me, the iconic Peggy Boney, who runs the Tennis Association for them. And their great staff. I also want to thank the Charleston tennis captains, the players, and we're all volunteer. No one is compensated. We all do this because we love the game of tennis and we realize the benefits that it brings to this community. So I also want to say that all 4,000 players and personnel of the LCTA extend our great sympathy at the passing of Chief Reynolds and his family, and thank you for his service, his leadership, and his protection. Thank you.
I'm Bob Pfeiffer and been in the tennis community here since the early 1990s. Seen the growth of tennis here. And I want to thank you for your support, particularly this past year. The new lights at Maybank and at Charleston Tennis Center are great. But I also want to encourage you to be thinking as we're having population boom, new people moving in, we're going to need to have more courts in order to support the new people coming into town. So keep that in the back of your mind as to where we can go, where we can increase the number of tennis courts that we have, so we can maintain that lofty position. And you know, Atlanta, here we come. We're going to beat you out. Probably that won't happen, but I'll give it a try.
Peggy, you want to be good? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being with us. Appreciate it. 9.7 years, y'all. Think about that. Woo-hoo. We have one more recognition this evening. I'd like to ask Councilmember Kevin Shealy to join me and Trevor Sheeler. I see Trevor with us. It's also National Collector Car Appreciation Day coming up, y'all. And Trevor's been involved with this for years and good friends with Councilmember Shealy. Here's a proclamation regarding that. Whereas beginning in 2009, the United States Congress declared National Collector Car Appreciation Day to recognize the collection and restoration of historic and classic cars as an important part of preserving the technological achievements and cultural heritage of the United States. Whereas for more than 100 years, the history of the automobile has impacted economic progress, and the city of Charleston recognizes the activities involved in the restoration and exhibition of classic automobiles. Whereas the collection, restoration, preservation of automobiles is activities shared across generations and across all segments of society through thousands of car clubs, related businesses, and whereas automotive restoration provides well-paying, high-skilled jobs for citizens of the Charleston community. Whereas automobiles have provided inspiration for music, photography, cinema, fashion, and other artistic pursuits that have become part of popular culture. Whereas I encourage the citizens of our community to engage in the events and commemorations of National Collector Car Appreciation Day that create opportunities for collector car owners to educate young people about the importance of preserving the cultural heritage of the United States, including the collection, restoration, preservation of collector cars. Therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, along with City Council, do hereby proclaim that Saturday, it's actually coming up in July, when we will do this, July 8th, will be National Collector Car Appreciation Day in the City of Charleston. And Trevor does an incredible job organizing this parade they have of the most fascinating collector cars that we have in the Charleston region. And when they have that, I'm sure he'll invite you to come down because it really is cool to see all those cars. Trevor?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'm the president of the Antique Automobile Club of America region here in Charleston. And I'll say in my life before law enforcement, there were old cars. And if you can get a kid into old cars, you can rest assured they'll never have money left for drugs. But this event, what we do is cars from every description, doesn't have to even be old, but cars of every description. We gather at Middlebank Park about 8:30 or 9 on Saturday, the 8th, and then we embark on a caravan that I map out a route through the historic district, and then we go do a scenic drive after that. And we would invite any city council folks to come along, other residents to come out and see us and visit, and we'll find you a seat in the car if you want to go for a ride. Kevin has come with us several times, and the mayor's been there to read the proclamation too. We really appreciate it. And as a professional scouter, separately, I would like to thank Jerry, please, sir, for your donation to Pinckney Park. We've got 2 scout units that meet there, and that's my next stop after I leave here. So, but thank you all.
Councilmember Shealy.
And thank you, Kevin.
We're good. All right, Trevor, congratulations. Thanks for being there with us again. Okay, next up, we have our public hearings. I think, Councilmember Seekings, would you like?
Purposes of public hearing, can we just take 1 through 11 together? Second. Call out those addresses. They're all rezonings. I don't think any of them are particularly controversial, so.
That is correct. Was there something a little different or they?
Number 1 is a little different, but that's in my district. I can tell you it's not controversial.
Okay, terrific. So y'all, for the purposes of our public hearings, they're all rezoning of properties, mostly those that have annexed into the city. But for the record, we have these public hearings in case anybody wants to speak on any of these properties before we take action upon them. So I'm going to call out the names of the properties. Mr. Morgan will make a brief presentation about all of them. And then anybody who wants to come forward about any of the properties will be happy to hear from you. Here are the properties: 17 Magazine Street, 2 Radcliffe Street, 226 Norris Avenue, 1721 Ashley River Road, 1708 Jessamine Road, 1349 Ashley Hall Road, 1648 Successionville Road, 1408 Orange Grove Road, 360 Linwood Drive, 818 St. Dennis Drive, and 2919 Doncaster Drive. Mr. Morgan, you want to give us the quick and easy on all of those?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The one that has a little bit more detail to it is 17 Magazine Street. This is a rezoning. The other ones are actual, there are actually 2 rezonings, and then the others are zonings for newly annexed property. But 17 Magazine Street is across the street from some of the housing for the Robert Mills Manor development, and it is to the east of the old city jail. And this request is actually coming from the folks who've done the redevelopment at the old city jail, and they are requesting a rezoning from DR2F to limited business to use this structure that is a single house for potentially office use and also food service type use. We have been doing some analysis of this request, and of course, it's been at Planning Commission. It's in our neighborhood designation in the comprehensive plan, so that doesn't preclude this type of use. This is an aerial image of the property there. You see the old city jail to the west and some of Robert Mills Manor to the north. And the neighborhood recommendations from the comprehensive plan. This is a view of the house from the street. and traditional Charleston single house. It's adjacent to some other parking areas. It's parking areas actually on both sides, as well as on-street parking in the surrounding area. There's the parking lot between it and the old jail. And here are just some of the other businesses in the area that there are some.
Go back one.
Yes, sir.
Photo, if you would. I just wanted to point out, council and the public, that, this is a plaque that the city, placed just some months or within the last year. And this property is the former site of the Charleston Workhouse that we talked about in chambers before.
And just an overall aerial showing where the property is and some of the nearby different uses. And Planning Commission has reviewed this and recommended 7-0 for rezoning. Would you like me to go on?
Keep
to the next
going.
ones? Yes, sir. Okay. All right. The next one is 2 Radcliffe Street. This is just off of King Street near the intersection of King and Radcliffe. This is a former funeral home on the site. It's behind the Oku sushi restaurant that is at that corner. It was previous or currently zoned, it is currently zoned DR2, which is a residential designation. It had grandfather status as the funeral home. And the request is to take it to limited business, which of course would not allow late night use like you see on King Street with general business. Limited business limits the hours of operation to no later than 11 p.m., but it does allow a greater number of uses such as offices and retail use and restaurants, things like that. This is in our comprehensive plan, a city center, so everything is in conformance with that. Here's an aerial image of the property. The building essentially fills the entire site, which is not uncommon in our King Street Business District. And again, it's our city center recommendation from the comprehensive plan. Here's an image of the property, a 2-story structure. And here it is from a little bit further away and from down the street in the other direction. And Planning Commission did review this and also recommended for approval of this rezoning as well. Now we move into the zonings that are from newly annexed properties, 226 Norris Avenue in West Ashley. This is coming in, would be coming in the city as rural residential. The reason for the rural residential as opposed to standard SR1, as you might see in the other surrounding area, is it is a little bit of a larger lot. And it is in our comprehensive plan in low impact and conserved. And so we would prefer that there not be other subdivision of this lot because of the potential threat. And so we are asking that it be zoned under RR1, which requires a larger minimum lot, which would reduce the ability to have that additional lot added to the site. Again, low impact and conserved, and aerial image of the property. And Planning Commission recommended that 8-0. On to 1721 Ashley River Road. This is a former residence that has commercial use in it now. It was zoned in the county as a commercial operation, and it would come in the city as limited business. What you see is on either side of it. So it's compatible with the surrounding zoning that's already in the city. This is an image. It shows it's in the neighborhood edge recommended area, and LB is compatible with neighborhood edge. That's just the description of neighborhood edge. And here we have an image of the property, again, residential look to it, and already a commercial business in it. And Planning Commission did recommend 8-0 for that LB zoning for that property. Then we move on to some other residential annexations. This is on Jessamine Road, 1708 Jessamine Road. This would come in the city as STR. It's not a short-term rental. It's a single and 2-family residential is what that stands for. It's a little bit older term in our zoning ordinance. It does have a duplex on the property. That's why it would come in as STR as opposed to SR1. And it's in our suburban designated area in our future land use. And here's an image of the property. You can see the 2 different staircases leading to the property, to the house. And Planning Commission recommended this as well. Then we move on to 1349 Ashley Hall Road. And that's a single family residential. It was R4 in the county, would come in the city as SR1, which is compatible and matches the lot size of the surrounding areas. And we'll just zip through that. There's an image of it there. And then we've got Secessionville Road. This is 1648 Secessionville Road. It's about a half-acre lot. It has City of Charleston around it. And those properties are also SR1. So it would come into the city as SR1 to be compatible with the surrounding zoning. It is in the low impact and conserved area, but because of its lot width, it would be difficult to subdivide it again, and that's not the intent of the person annexing it. So we felt comfortable with the SR1 for that property. And that's the low impact and conserved recommendation. Here's an image of the property there and the house that's on it. And Planning Commission did endorse that. Then we moved to Orange Grove Road, 1408 Orange Grove Road. And this is next to apartment building right there off of Orange Grove. But this is a single family residence. It would come into the city for SR1, and that is compatible with the other recent annexations we've had in that general area. And here we go. It's in the suburban area and recommendation for suburban. And there's an image of the property. And that also was recommended by Planning Commission. Then we moved to Linwood Drive in West Ashley. Another single family residence in the area that when we bring the single family residences in, they come in as SR1. And you see the suburban edge recommendation there. And again, an image of the property. And Planning Commission did recommend for that. And then we move on to 818 St. Dennis Drive in West Ashley, which is, it was residential in Charleston County and would come in the city as SR1, and that matches the surrounding properties to the rear and either side and across the street. And then we have it in our suburban edge designation in our comprehensive plan. And no, it should say suburban edge. I apologize for that, but it is the zoning is compatible with what we have in our comprehensive plan and SR1 for that property. And then we move, Planning Commission did recommend for that. And then finally, we have on Doncaster Drive, 2919, a recent annexation SR1, which is the surrounding zoning in the area. And that is, it is in low impact and conserved, but it's a smaller lot, so it couldn't be further subdivided. So we felt comfortable with the SR1, and Planning Commission did that as well and recommended it 8-0.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Would anyone like to be heard on any of these properties? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Mr. Mayor, did you want to have a time limit? A time limit? The time is 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
A point of information. I mean, I'm not on council, but I do have a point of information in terms of the reason why the May 9th, 2023 minutes are not on the agenda. How do you go from old minutes to new? How do you go from old business to new business? I'm trying to figure that one out from the chair, because you advanced the agenda. I'm asking the chair the question.
Sir, this is not a question and answer period. This is for your public comment on any of the properties that we have
Okay, good. Well, I can
enumerated
say
here
it then.
this evening.
Okay, well, my concern about all the annexations, all the things that you're doing is based on the Supreme Court on this comprehensive plan in terms of the impacts it has on redistricting. Okay, so basically your zoning policies affect the lines and how they're drawn 10 years from now. And I think that this process, in my opinion, undermines civil rights of people within our community, because you don't factor in with these zonings and these annexations values. It's not a part of it, not financial hardship or anything's considered. Lastly, Federal Bureau of Investigation is with the mayor and zoning, local zoning, with Berkeley County, with Dorchester County, with Town of Somerville and others. Did the mayor give you notice in terms at his press conference on local zoning of people that they are innocent until proven guilty? Every warrant signed, everything was signed in a local zone area. And if the mayor's going to make a public statement about people in the local areas in terms of their civil rights, their constitutional rights, to give this council notice what the ordinances is and process saying innocent until proven guilty in all local zoning ordinances.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard on any of these properties? Please come forward. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jonathan Oakman. I'm here on behalf of the applicant for 17 Magazine Street rezoning. I'm just here to, offer the opportunity to answer any questions or concerns that council or the mayor may have on that property. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments on any of these properties? Y'all need me to read out the addresses again? Y'all got it? All right. Hearing none or seeing none, it comes to council. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, I would ask, Morgan a question, on the, 2 Ratcliffe Street. I know that's where the, Smith Funeral Home used to be, and they moved to North Charleston.
Yes,
But
sir.
did the, neighborhood association there, was it contacted about the changes that's gonna take place, or what's gonna be taking place there? And also, right next to it is the, Catholic church that's right around behind it, to make sure that wherever they're planning on building there, or putting there, that's not going to infringe on the Catholic church there. So that's one thing I have, got a little, concern about.
Yes, sir. So, yes, sir. It is, I'll get to the map here. So, let's see, here we go. So there is another parcel in between it, and then there's a building that backs up to the Catholic Church. Both of those parcels are still DR2. So I think they'll have a little bit of buffering from the Catholic Church. It was my understanding that they had been in touch with the neighborhood. We've heard no objections from the neighborhood at the Planning Commission meeting, and I guess not tonight. So I think people have been comfortable with it and had always assumed that because of the funeral home use, that it had some degree of, commercial applicability there.
I just want to ask to make sure.
Yes, sir.
If anybody
Yes.
asking the question, they had opportunity to come in.
Councilmember
I
Seeking.
just have a quick question while you've got that map up. That property across the street, the DR2 property, which is that single house that's in great disrepair,
Yes, sir.
is the plan still to move that?
That was what I understood, is that the BAR had granted permission to move that around the corner.
Have we heard anything about whether that's actually going to happen?
Not to my ears,
Not-
but
Okay.
Still fighting.
Nothing recent.
all right. And Councilmember Gregg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we know what the intended use is for 2 Ratcliffe Street?
No, they have not talked to us. I think they've had trouble selling it. It's been on the market for several years.
Okay.
And you couldn't at present, with the current zoning, sell it, for instance, for an office. And so they were interested in maybe selling it for that or for retail use. And again, you couldn't sell it for that at present zoning.
And I have one question.
Yes, sir.
On Magazine Street, since the applicant is here, is the plan to renovate that building? Or are they planning to tear it down? Or you may have said that, but I just.
I don't know that they could get permission to tear it down. What are y'all
It
thinking on
would
that?
be a renovation.
Okay.
Renovation for,
Thank you.
commercial use.
All right,
I assume so.
back to Councilmember Seeking.
Thank you. Just very briefly on 17 Magazine Street, which is in the heart of District 8. As my fellow council members will remember, if you were here 5, 6, 7 years ago, and particularly Councilmember Waring, this is in the shadows of the old city or the old jail, which has now been just about completely renovated. And you all may remember, we spent hundreds of hours in these chambers debating the old city jail, what to do with it. It was part of a land swap with the School for the Building Arts. It went on for a long
I
time.
think that was before my time.
It was before your time. Hard to believe there was a time before that, Mayor, but but if you haven't been there and seen this renovation, it is spectacular. It really is spectacular. And this piece of property is a natural sort of annex and use with that property. So I would highly recommend, if you're wandering around, particularly if you spent some of those 200 hours debating what was going on, go take a look at that renovation. And I credit the applicant through Mr. Oakman. They've contacted the neighbors, they've contacted the neighborhood, they've talked to me. I think this is completely consistent with what's going on Magazine Street. And y'all, just another preview, you may know that the Fielding Funeral Home is about to go under contract, has been perhaps sold to Charleston Day School. So that area is going to change a little bit over there, and this will be a good part of it. So I endorse it totally. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other comments, questions? Can I entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 11?
Second.
And second, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next up is approval of city council minutes from
For approval.
April 25th. And I'll just note that we take the minutes as we get them done by the clerk's office, who does an excellent job, but sometimes they do run a meeting behind. Any additions, deletions, or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. Next is our citizens' participation period. Madam Clerk will help us navigate that?
Yes, we have. Let's see, 1, 2. I think we have 6 people signed up to speak. Did you want to set a time limit? Anthony Bryant.
I can't use the phone for some strange reason. But I want to say something about Chief Reynolds. We were detractors on many issues, but he was always fair. And I don't talk about a man that ain't around, but I would say that he was a good cat. I really enjoyed debating the issues with him, and he was spirited in his debates. He wasn't thin-skinned like many people. But what I would say tonight is the FBI is in North Charleston. The FBI has qualified immunity. The FBI got it wrong on a Black man in Charleston County and humiliated his family. The FBI did Brandon Mayfield in, lied on Brandon Mayfield. The FBI is a corrupt organization, in particular when it comes to Fred Hampton, Dr. King, and everybody else Black I know. So when a mayor stands with the FBI against Black people, I get real nervous and then ask them for their vote. You're gonna ask me for my vote. Senator Scott's up there talking about he gonna oppose international policies on drugs. Well, 70% of the country in America is on drugs. America is the biggest consumer of drugs in the world. How you gonna stop something that in your country and blame poor Black folk on the corner for it? Blame them, Black and brown people, for your problem. You getting high, not us. You've been getting high for 50 years, not us. But you want to put us in jail. He was a scapegoat to America and to the world. Tell Senator Scott that. He ain't from the hood, left the hood a long time ago and never came back, and many of y'all left and never came back. Quit blaming our children. They're not educated. They have no skill set. What are they going to do? Work for Google? Work for Boeing? Boeing basically robbing the Department of Defense. It's on 60 Minutes, robbing them blind. Rob, he ain't talk about that. He talked about some poor Black kids from his old neighborhood he putting down to put in prison. I'm sick of Black people sitting there with white folk lying to them that we actually like going to prison and jail and being humiliated. We don't. We don't like that. At the end of the day, when a white mayor talked to the FBI against Black people, he's a coward.
Thank you, sir.
Tony Daniel.
Yes, sir. That was the mayor.
Thank you.
All right, that was a really nice story I heard about when the teacher called Ross Appel. Not my experience. My experience with calling Ross Appel ended up with him calling me names, which, by the way, should be against the code of conduct. I agree. Let's see. So what you're receiving is the notes. So what we've gone over so far is we've gone over the letters written to Ross Appel about me and why the road should be closed, keeping the school children away. It's not a cut through. It has nothing to do with cutting through. Next, we went over the law last week. The law says you cannot close a road without an order from city council. There is no order from city council. What there is an order to barricade the roads, which Mr. McQueenie said is temporary. This happened in 1976. Temporary has come and gone. It's also against the rules to dig up the road and plant trees where there's a barricade. You can't do any of those things. So I'm not quite sure why, after coming up on 3 years, repeated visits to the city council, I've never been told why it's legal, how it's legal, and when it's going to be resolved. Am I ever going to get anything in writing, Mayor, telling me why the roads are closed? Am I going to ever get anything in writing with a letter of apology for saying I've lost my mind from somebody that's never met me? And that would be Ross Appel. He did it in writing. I've never lied to you, Mayor. Tom Finnegan lied to you. Ross Appel said the roads were open. How could a road be open if they've got trees in the middle of them? So I'm still waiting to find out why. We did a traffic study. Traffic study showed exactly what I said. It's the neighborhood going through. You know how they could have solved this? It's with a gate. Just put a gate at the, if people are cutting through, put a gate at the other end of the neighborhood with a remote control. That's all you need. Everybody in the neighborhood gets remote control. Gate opens and closes. Boom. Everybody's happy. Why is my 94-year-old father having to suffer through 5 times the amount of traffic? Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mohammed Idris.
have to excuse me, you're like, I'm 80 years old, so I'm not as young as some of you all are out there. We want to, at this time, recognize the great work that Chief Reynolds had performed in Charleston. And we thank God for him, and we pray, God, that it would grant him paradise, forgive him for his shortcoming, and may he rest in peace.
Amen.
To help a man like the chief and our former chief, Reuben Greenberg, we have to work to get these things out of our society. We say that we are fighting crime, and yet we have stores selling devil cream. And we know that we say that the devil is evil. And if you look in that word devil, you see evil. So we have to work, if we want to fight crime and stop crime and really pay respect to a man like Chief Reynolds, we must stop these kind of advertisements in our business. We preach every Sunday, Friday, the Muslim on Friday, the Jews on Saturday, and the Christian on Sunday. The devil is easy. And yet we are selling devil food in our grocery store. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jerome Harris.
Good evening, members of council. On your agenda this evening is an extension or amendment to the contract or the racial bias assessment audit. Urge you to pass that. Also, while we're in this moment reflecting on Chief Reynolds' passing, we need to hold up the fact that the audit is proceeding, and on Thursday evening there at 6 p.m. at the downtown library will be a community meeting, community forum where the community is involved and invited. I went to the session on last Saturday. It was relatively sparsely attended. I urge each of you to communicate with your block association leaders and community folks and urge them to participate in that process. It's part of the data collection, and hearing from the citizens is important.
Thank you, sir.
Roy Neal.
Thank you for having me again. I think you recognize me. I have two quick topics. I'm here to praise City Council and the mayor. I'm telling you, the impact that you made with the IntelliCheck scanner program worked. It really worked. And to quote our good friend, the chief, he said, if you can make an impact on underage drinking, you'll make an impact on excessive drinking. And that's what has happened. So I need help now when this program ends, how to move it forward. We've got to find a way, and it can't be left up to the business owners just to chime in and maybe we do it and maybe we don't do it. I'll keep doing it, but we need help. We need direction from the city. I'll get you a group of business owners, whatever you need, but we need to move it forward, at least for the late night business district. It'd be great to go citywide, but please keep this program, keep it moving forward. The second thing I want to talk about is King Street closure, another great success. The King Street lane closure, a great success. I was on King Street on Cinco de Mayo night. It was crazy. I've never seen the population like it has been. If you hadn't done what you've done, we would have had major issues. But I think it needs to be tweaked. There's some business owners that are getting hurt and affecting it because it's closing at 6 o'clock. I think it needs to move around 8 o'clock. The police department does an incredible job of putting up the barriers and things, but I think they can shrink the timeline. Close it at 8, put the barricades up by 9, and you're good to go. Talk to some business owners, the retail business owners, which I am not one. I'm a restaurant hospitality. It doesn't really affect us, but it does if you come down and have dinner at 5 o'clock because you get a boot or something that happens at 6 o'clock. We need to slide that back a little bit, but it's a great program. I applaud you. Please keep helping your local businesses because that's what's making an impact. Thank you.
Bob O'Brien.
Bob O'Brien, 10 Stutz Course, Shadow Moss. Just along with what we were saying, Chief Reynolds, Chief Greenberg, we've been blessed with real leadership in our town and all the others on the long line. long blue line here to protect us every day. Mayor, unlike you, I attended the informational meeting led by Councilman Peter Shahid, and thank you, sir, for it, on the proposed joint venture development of Rittenberg Sumar Old Town Road Triangle property owned by the city of Charleston. In an overflow, jam-packed room of West Ashley residents, not one single person voiced strong approval for the landmark proposal, which will cost 45 million tax dollars to implement and does virtually nothing to positively address the dangerous traffic at the intersection. A scaled-down version costing a little less, but adding a high-rise garage as opposed to an underground garage, which still keeps Landmark's high-density, multi-story, 7 buildings, and those buildings eliminating the sight lines on the merging traffic on the most dangerous traffic interchange of West Ashley is development at its worst. This property was purchased by the city to address the traffic problems, to create a low-density, bucolic, visually pleasing entranceway to West Ashley with a park and a small civic building. This does none of that. Giving Landmark 20 to 45 million of Charleston citizens' tax dollars to create a high-density traffic disaster on land the city owns is absurd and life-threatening. If you insist on spending more tax dollars, how about increasing police patrols on West Ashley streets, which are currently experiencing nightly car break-ins and thefts, or purchasing additional fire
Time.
Thank you.
And those were all the citizens we had signed up to speak. The only comments we received were from Mr. Bryant, and those were sent in full to council ahead of the meeting.
Thank y'all for being with us and sharing your comments. We really appreciate it. So next up is our petitions and communications section. We have an appointment. I would like to call on Robert Summerfield just with a reminder to council members about a committee that we're trying to fill. Robert?
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, I want to say a quick thank you to everyone on every member of council who supplied a name for the advisory panel for the zoning rewrite. However, having said that, we do have a few members who have yet to provide a name, and that deadline has come and gone. So I'm asking if you have not yet sent me a name for someone you would like to sit on that panel, please do so by the end of the week. We have the consultants coming back to town next month at just a couple weeks from now, and we'd like to set up that first meeting of that advisory panel when the consultant team is in town. So just another plug, if you have not yet had an opportunity to recommend someone, please do so. Thank you, sir.
We know you want to have your district represented on this. It's really an important committee over the next year to help input and oversee this planning, this zoning rewrite. It's a major rewrite. So please send us your recommendations by Friday. We do have one appointment for the Citizens Police Advisory Council, Mr. Jamie Kahn. We have a motion, Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm certainly in support of Jamie Kahn. I saw the background. That's good. I just wanted to mention that I know we're going to have high school representative rolling off, and we have never had one from James Island High School or West Ashley High School, our two largest high schools. And it sure would be nice to have the schools that represent the most constituents to have a representative on here. So I hope we'll think about that as we have a high school.
So I'm looking for somebody. If you got somebody in mind you want to nominate, please send me their name and info.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. All right. Any more comments on on Jamie Kahn? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. And next, is Ms. Copeland, are you going to do this mediation presentation, or Maglee is? Please come forward.
Good evening. This is to receive your approval on a mediated settlement agreement for an appeal from the BAR Small. The property address is 194 Nassau, which falls in our historic material demolition purview. Under this agreement, the owner will be required to rebuild an exact replica or as close to an exact replica of the historic Freedman's Cottage, which was located on the property. Unfortunately, it was demolished without approval. But after significant efforts between our city staff and the applicant, we have a design which we think will be a successful rebuild of what was there. And we're requesting your approval for this.
Any questions on this? Councilmember Shade.
I don't want to violate any attorney-client communication we may have received on this, but is there a penalty associated with him violating the direct denial of a demolition?
Was there any other pending matters that I'm aware of?
No, a penalty.
A penalty?
A penalty, a
Well,
financial penalty.
Under the current zoning code, the failure to have the permit could incur a daily penalty for building without a permit. But this allows the applicant to rebuild what was there. And unfortunately, our zoning code is lacking in terms of something more perhaps punitive, but we're going to look into addressing that with the zoning rewrite.
So under our current, let's make sure I'm clear, on our current ordinance, we cannot levy a financial penalty.
We'll put him in jail.
So
I think we can. We just have a mediation settlement.
Yes.
I understand that, but a part of the, and I'm not trying to undo the mediated agreement. I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. Did we have the ability under the current zoning ordinances that the unlawful demolition of this property, because I understand his application for demolition was denied, but the demolition proceeded anyhow. If that's the case, why was there not a penalty imposed as part of this mediated agreement? If we have the ability to impose a penalty.
That was not within the purview of what was before the board. It wasn't the basis of, I mean, we are limited to what the South Carolina code allows us to do insofar as approving an appeal to the circuit court.
But in a mediated agreement, you have the latitude to be able to, because this is an agreement. This is not a result of a court decision, even from administrative court. You have the ability to impose a penalty. I mean, this seems to me very blatant. A person that makes an application, he is specifically denied the demolition, and the demolition proceeds anyhow. And I know I agree with the idea that we were going ahead and make him rebuild a replica, but the idea that we can, I mean, this is one of the most important ordinances we have in the book, is that if you're going to demolish something, you've got to get approval. If you can, then you proceed to demolish it, then you walk away. I mean, that's what I'm a little confused on this process.
And I would add that the appellant has denied any knowledge or involvement in the demolition, and we did not investigate it as part of the appeal. We were focused on finding a way to bring back what was there.
Sounds like one of my
To
clients.
answer your question directly, the code does not allow for a penalty, but we are going to work on that on the rezoning or the zoning code rewrite.
Okay, yeah, I think that's sort of important, and I'm glad you brought it up, Ms. Copeland. But if a person is doing something in violation of an ordinance, and in particular after an application's been denied and proceeds with that, there's got to be some teeth to the ability to levy some kind of punitive measure against the applicant once they violate a direct denial of a demolition.
Thank you. Councilmember Seekings?
So I think we can all agree we probably need to work on that part of our code.
Yes, sir.
My question is more to the settlement. Is there a hard deadline against which this work needs to be completed? And if it's not, is there a punitive provision in the mediated settlement agreement for not completing this work within a certain period of time to the satisfaction of our planning department and our building department and anybody else who's going to go out there and look at what was a beautiful old historic home that needed renovation that's coming out of the ground brand new?
No, sir, there are no deadlines in the settlement agreement. But I can say that the applicant is eager to move forward and has been asking daily when we can proceed.
I get that, but I mean, we're here to approve a settlement for someone who, or somebody did something they shouldn't have done. Whether it was the owner or one of his agents or employees. And now we're going to approve a settlement that is open-ended. I mean, how does this end? What tool do we have to make sure this gets done?
can we entertain amendment to the settlement?
We would need to, yes, we could entertain an amendment and then run that past his attorney. And if it's all in agreement, we could proceed that. route.
I think it's reasonable to have a timeline.
Yeah, I think so.
on the
And
reconstruction.
some provision in there, if the timeline comes and goes, that we've got a remedy. Right? Because I mean, this could go on forever. So I know.
Could I ask a question? Do they have a permit yet to do the
No.
construction?
So by approving the settlement, they will receive the after the fact approval to demolish, and that will allow them to continue construction.
Yeah, so it could
get a
take
permit.
them some time to get a permit.
Yeah.
And then do the work.
Yes.
And maybe we set a timeline requirement, of 6 months for them to get a permit and then another year to build it, something like that. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, I mean, I think there should be some time parameters, and along with that, if they're not met through no fault of ours, and it just doesn't go forward, there should be some provision in there that allows us to pursue another remedy. But I just have a quick question for council after she finishes consulting with Mr.
Oh,
Zimmerman.
consulting. going
Yeah,
on.
I got it.
We could track that with the expiration of the permit.
I get it, all that. I just, if you come back to us a year from now or 2 years, whatever the time frame is, and say nothing's happened over there, we're gonna have a tool to do something about it.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend I don't want to ask for legal advice on the session, but is it a motion to defer pending an agreement or a provision added in the agreement that there's a backstop against this?
Yes, I would recommend a deferral so that we could.
I'll
add
move,
additional
I'll move
language.
that.
But could I ask, could we not just amend the agreement?
Well, they gotta
and-
agree to it.
And then, yeah, they got to agree to it. But if they'd agree to it, then it doesn't have to come back to us, right?
Well, the question would be the
Yeah.
timing and the provision on the backside. I think we need to
Yeah.
give our team a little bit of time to think about how long they get and what
Yeah.
happens if they don't complete the work in time
Right.
in terms of some monetary provision, penalty or whatever, I think. I don't want to amend it on the floor here. I
All
think
right.
giving council some time
All
to
right.
talk to
Y'all
legal
want to
counsel.
defer, that's fine. I
So I'll
was
move
just
to
trying to
defer.
move it along.
I get it.
We have a motion on the floor to defer and a second. And y'all want to talk about it anymore? Any other provisions you would recommend to our staff to take up with them?
We got very able legal counsel.
Yeah.
I'm fully confident that they can get this taken care of.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is an update by our Chief Innovation Officer, Tracy McKee, on the City of Charleston open data policy and innovation. And I don't want to steal her thunder, but we had a visit last week by an organization which is sponsored by Michael Bloomberg. It's called What Works Cities, that measures how active a city is in its innovation and use of data. There are only 55 cities in America that have qualified by their requirements. And we should hear back from them soon as to whether we qualify or not, but I think we're in the running. Tracy McKee.
Yeah, you didn't allow me to convince everyone this is not a COVID or redistricting update, so. So hopefully a brief presentation on kind of an update of our open data policy and innovation. So I wanted to start off with kind of where we're headed this year. So we created a 2023 action plan. This plan is published and available on the website. So there's a link here on the slide. So you can go and check that out. We kind of broke it into 3 different sections, focusing on open data, which I'm going to really focus on tonight, innovation and performance management. And so the other things I'm going to touch on briefly are the City Data Alliance. You all have heard about the City Data Alliance. We engaged in that program last year. There were kind of 2 facets of that engagement, one focusing on procurement excellence. That's where the recommendations for our procurement limits came from. So you all have seen that. The other piece of that was developing a citywide data strategy. I bring that up simply because that strategy or the recommendations for that strategy are really woven into the action plan for this year, as well as the open data report. And before I forget, there are 2 documents that will be coming to you this week. Number 1, as part of the open data policy, I provide you with an open data report every year. So that will be in your inbox later this week, but you're going to see the highlights tonight. And the second one is a draft of this data strategy that I'm going to touch on very so briefly. And then the mayor mentioned the What Works City certification. This provides a benchmark for us to be able to understand how we're performing in our use of data practices in the city. So some good stuff. So, I like to measure stuff. This is actually in the action plan, so I'm not going to dive in too deep, but hopefully y'all know that we did win 2 awards last year, which is pretty exciting. And it's actually for the public meeting portal that we launched during COVID. So that's pretty exciting. A couple of other things here. If I talked about all these, I'd be up here for probably 5 hours, but yes, but I'm more than happy to, dive into any of these if y'all have specific questions. So again, this open data report is coming to you this week, but the highlights are January of 2021, the mayor, city council, you all adopted an open data policy. And I hope what you see by the end of these few slides is how impactful that policy has been in strengthening our data practices as an organization. So the first thing we were able to do once that policy was adopted is we created the city's first comprehensive data inventory, really understanding what we actually have as an organization. That inventory is also published. So that was really a significant first step. So last year, what we really focused on was creating a new inventory tool. So once we had the initial inventory, making it a lot easier for departments to update their inventory. So this was a web-based internal tool that departments can use. We created a public-facing inventory dashboard. I'll show you a snapshot of that here in just a second. This is the first year departments have submitted data publishing plans to. What that means is departments have simply identified data sets that are ripe for sharing with the public, and they've committed to actually publishing those this year. So we created a dashboard that the public can also track our progress there, see what departments have submitted plans, what they plan to publish, and track the progress. Another piece of this is how do we help the community better use open data? So we've published some user guidance through videos that we've put on our open data platform. And so there's more of that to come. Here's just a snapshot of the data inventory dashboard, so you can see how much is from each department and whatnot. So, and there's a link on the slide too if you want to check that out. Another piece is engaging with the community. So in March, we launched our second annual Open Data Day program. This is an international celebration that really celebrates the use of open data across the world. So this year we had presentations from both staff and residents on how they use open data. Yes, we actually had some residents actually make presentations on how they've used open data, which was super exciting for us. And we saw a 95% increase in attendance from 2022. And attendees saw everything from applications built with open data, how open data is used to support decision-making, telling stories through data, as well as providing some tutorials on how to use open data. So some of the recommendations that'll also be in this report, the report goes into these in a lot more detail, but I did want to just kind of point them out to you, is create an open data advisory council, kind of a neutral body that could really provide some feedback on the report on how good we're doing at implementing the open data policy that you all put forth. Creating a chief data officer position, someone who thinks about data as an asset for the city, someone whose job it is to do that every single day. Additional open data user guidance. We plan on launching 3 more video tutorials this year. And then how do we track the use of open data. So we've already actually implemented that, and it's part of our open data platform. So you can go and see all the data that's published and what the interest is in all those data sets, so that we can help, keep moving this this effort forward. Really, do we build dashboards on those data sets that are most valuable to the public? I am not going to go through all these. Again, I mentioned this, though. This is the draft data strategy that is coming out of our work from the City Data Alliance. Again, there's a kind of 8 action items that are part of this draft, and they are really interwoven into the action plan and our open data report. So I just want to call your attention to it, and you'll see a draft of that, like I said, later this week in your inbox. So getting to the What Works City certification, again, the mayor indicated this is a way that we can measure how we are using data and evidence to improve the lives of residents. So what is this thing? So it is really the international standard of excellence for well-managed, data-driven local government. And why do they have this thing? It's really to help government decision makers regularly and effectively use evidence and data to improve the lives of our residents. How do they do it? There are 43 criteria that are established through the What Works City program. And so we are evaluated on all 43 of those criteria to see how we, if we've implemented them, and allows us to see how we compare to other cities as well. And so those 43 criteria help provide a roadmap for us of how we strengthen our data practices in the city. So a little bit about kind of what our journey has been. This is not a brand new initiative. We actually applied to be part of this initiative back in 2016. You can see on this timeline, we did an assessment in 17, 19, 21, and finally in 2023. And I've just called out some of the different organizations that really have been crucial in helping us as an organization improve our data practices. So I mentioned those different assessments. This chart shows how we have scored over the years in those assessments. And we're kind of that first darker, like aqua green color in the chart. So you can see in 2017, we were right about 20%, but still performing not quite as well as other cities that went through this assessment process. They changed their criteria in 2019, so everyone kind of dropped in their assessments, including us. We made some progress again in 2021. And so you'll see 2023, the significant progress that we've made in this assessment with the What Works Cities program. And you might notice we are now over that threshold of becoming silver level certification eligible. So what that means is we now have enough points or credits, if you will, to get that certification. We got a site visit last weekend. We are pending a committee that reviews all of the criteria. We will hear about our final, whether we get that certification or not by the end of June, I'm told. So, but I think it's an opportunity to really celebrate the progress that we have made as an organization in strengthening our data practices. And, certification really isn't just for certification's sake either. So this whole program is about how do we implement policy, programs, and standards that make sure that we keep all this work moving forward. I'm not going to be here forever. Other people that are really invested in this are not going to be here forever. So how do we make sure that all this work continues to move forward to really improve the lives of our residents? And lastly, I think it's just an opportunity to pause and really celebrate all the amazing work that's happening across the whole organization to really improve our data practices, to improve outcome for residents. So with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions y'all have.
Any questions? Yes, Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Tracy. Your enthusiasm and energy for data, you get me excited. because
All
this is not my
right.
wheelhouse. but So thank you for that.
That warms my
presentation,
heart a
Tracy.
lot.
Thank you for all the work that you do.
Anyone else? Councilmember Sacred.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to go as far as warming my heart, Tracy, but I do have just some general questions. So the end game here is what for the city? If everything works as it should, we're sharing data to the public sharing data with us, we're transparent. What's the goal? Like, what does that mean for average citizen in the city?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we see as we strengthen our practices, we do see improved outcome for residents. And so I've talked about open data, but the What Works City certification isn't just about open data. It's about data governance. It's about budget and finance. It's about results-driven contracting. It's about leadership. So we get scored on a lot of different categories. So it's really holistic approach to how we actually treat and use data as an organization.
And I guess the second follow-up is that part of that plan to basically kind of investigate the data and look at the data in terms of being more transparent? Is there a digital engagement plan? Because I mean, I've said this before, I feel like, our website is the first place that people will stop. So we can have all the data in the world internally, but if we're not able to create the highway to communicate with the public, that data is useless.
1000% agree. Data has to be actionable, right, in order to be impactful. And so even though we're improving, we still have a lot of work to do. So I would love to see us, even if we get this silver certification next month, that doesn't mean it's the end of the road. I think there's a lot. And of course, we could look through all the different 43 criteria, and I think you'd see the depth at which they actually evaluate us on, and you can see kind of how they really intend for it to be really the soul and heartbeat of the organization, and to make it actionable. We can dive into that at a different time or whatever, but yeah. So.
Any other questions? So I must admit, some of this seems to go over our heads. But to me, one of the bottom lines is that we as a city collect a lot of information. And in my view, that information belongs to the public. And that's just the term open data of the city proactively sharing our information with our citizens. They own the information, right? What has happened where cities have been proactive about this information is kind of a matter of transparency, of putting out there everything we know about ourselves. And sometimes that shows your warts and your challenges a little bit, but oftentimes it leads to creativity, sometimes among citizens. As she said, two participants of our open data looked at our information and started thinking of ways that they could use our data to help us improve ourselves, So it's just overall a goal is to be more transparent, but also to provide information. So not only our own staff, but even the public could help us, with better outcomes over the long run by using the public information. So thank you, Tracy and Shannon. Shannon, have y'all met Shannon before? She's our Harvard fellow. She's a really smart young lady and has been instrumental in all these efforts over the
Thanks to Bloomberg and Harvard, she has been fantastic. So.
That's right. So thank you for your help and involvement in all this. So, any other questions or thoughts? So heading on, we now, thank you, Tracy, for that presentation, and you'll be getting that report later this week. Next is our council committee reports. First up, Committee on Human Resources, Councilmember Gregory.
Mayor and Council, the Committee on Human Resources met on May 11th at 4 o'clock. And there were two items on our agenda. The first was staffing and the retention reports. And we go over those reports at all of our meetings, and our retention report is all trending in the right direction. On the Medicare supplement, it was a discussion And after the discussion, I determined, I think with the rest of the members of the committee, that our director, Kay Cross of Human Resources, was correct, and that it's something that we really can't do. She did the legwork and research, got the legal opinions, et cetera, and it's concluded that it is in fact too good to be true. And I think that was the consensus of the committee as well. And, you know, I'd like to really just thank our director of human resources for sticking to her guns and coming up with the kind of data and information to support her position. We voted on nothing, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Next up, Committee on Recreation, Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Committee on Recreation met Monday, May 15th at 4:00 PM. And Jason Kronsberg had reminded us that we needed to get our priority lists in as far as council members. So if you would, please get those. I think Jason said there's 7 that have been turned in as of today. So we still need 5 of them, if you will. Pageen Hanrahan and Jessica Welch gave us an update from the Public Lands Trust, and they also said they're hoping that we'll get those lists very quickly. And they will be doing public opinion research with a national polling group. If that polling is favorable, we will pull together clear, concise language for the ballot. So her overall recommendation, she said, we'll see how things go, but her overall recommendation is usually bonds. She gave an example of a $60 million bond that would cost a typical Charleston household $55 for 20 years. But she said that we'll choose a maximum amount for that bond. We'll come up with that from the data that we get. So the last day to send that information for the ballot, for it to be legal to go on the ballot, is August 15th. Now, that's very important because we only have 2 more meetings between now and then. So we're going to need a first reading on this at our very next meeting. So that's why it's so important that we get the list together and get it quickly. Then we'll have, hopefully our second and third readings we'll have in July meetings. So after we assess which projects are most popular, the Trust for Public Lands will put together a campaign that'll include town halls, some Facebook ads, some things like that to get the word out about this. So after we finish with that, Bobby Collins, the president of the Friends for the Muni, joined our meeting, and he had gone down some things over the last couple of years that Friends of the Muni has helped with or is in the process of contributing to financially as far as our municipal golf course in a variety of ways. They've spent well over $60,000. Some of that was $4,000 for mower blade sharpener for the maintenance crews. It was $7,000 in new and replacement sprinkler heads. They came up with a $25,000 grant from Fairways Foundation that's used to enhance the pond on the holes 12 through 14, where they've got some new marsh grasses out there. And they're also spending currently $25,000 to cover the cost of the pre-construction paperwork for the new bathrooms that are going on the course. So they've also completed renovating or I guess refreshing the Friends of the Muni website. So if you haven't seen that, it's just friendsofthemuni.com. It's a pretty good little website. I showed a little bit in our meeting, but if you haven't seen it, it might be good to take a look. But some of their plans for the rest of 2023 is they would like to collaborate with us as city council members to increase and help identify some youth groups, maybe in your individual districts, to get some kids out for the first time out in the community. They're looking for kids, groups that are 7 to 14 years old. And what they've done with some of these kids in the past, they've been out on the range, but they've got this big pink hippopotamus that you knock these balls into. And from what I understand, the kids are just going crazy about it. They're telling their friends about it and driving some interest in golf for kids that may not have had an opportunity to swing a golf club if it weren't for that program. So if you've got a group of kids that you want to get involved in that, I know Bobby would, and any of the staff or any of the directors for Friends of Muni would love to hear who you have. And they're certainly trying to communicate with Muni staff, our recreation department, the city finance to develop a campus-wide master plan at the Muni. They've got some post-course renovation ideas going on, and of course with the two new on-course restrooms they're helping out with, and anything else that needs to be done out there, they're willing to help us. So anyway, that there was nothing really to vote on, but that's kind of the conclusion of my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good report, Mr. Chairman. And I would urge you to also receive a report from the Golf Commission.
Okay.
Councilmember Parker and the panel and I serve on that commission, and we usually are very good about attending those meetings. I just want to make one comment. One of the recommendations we made at our last commission meeting was that there was a high rate of no-shows for tee times. And until recently, there was no penalty for not doing that. And it was recommended that we now, when you go online and get a tee time, that you pay $10 and you give your credit card. The number of no-shows generated at $10 would create a $300,000 windfall. That was a number of no-shows at Muni in a month, in a year's time. So they did it, and I just logged on last week, give my credit card, and you had to pay a $10 holding fee for doing that. And if you don't show up, you get bumped the next time you try to do it. So those are the kind of things that the commission is very active on, and I would just encourage you to bring them into your recreation committee to get a report, something along those lines. I mean, that's a significant amount of lost revenue that we may be able to capture now to help with these bathrooms and other projects they want to do. Something as simple as a $10 registration fee. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Waring.
Councilman Shealy, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. Wasn't there some talk sometime last year about some sort of pavilion or shelter? If you could touch on that. And then sometimes by that Friends of the Muni. And then there was a conversation some months back into 22 about Fort Pemberton being done, and some talk with the county parks and recreation of making a bike pedestrian walk from Fort Pemberton all the way to James Island County Park. I don't know if Mr. Kronsberg is still here. Is any movement on that? I know Council Lady Anna Johnson, Mr. Mayor, was in favor of that, but I thought, bike pedestrian pathway that takes you off of Folly Road to get from Fort Pemberton that the city's gonna do, and obviously by the Muni and all the way to, James Island County Park would be fantastic.
I don't have anything on a bike ped connection between the two. We are working through a design contract to bring phase 1 Fort Pemberton construction documents through the process. We've done a lot of community outreach in the neighborhood. We have a good subcommittee of neighborhood representatives that we're working with. So that's going well, but I don't know anything about the bike ped connection project.
Bottom line, we need to open it first.
Right.
Before we can connect it with anything. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Councilmember Waring.
Well, that's okay. I mean, that was gonna take a collaboration between multi-jurisdictional governments. It would be the city of Charleston, of course, the county, even the town of James Island. So that's gonna take an effort, but I think it's an effort worth having.
That's right. It would be a great path down Riverland, from the golf course down Riverland to the county park connected to. Would love to see it one day. Yep. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll get you more information because we just had our James Island intergovernmental. So there are a lot of county projects, thanks to Councilwoman Honeycutt, coming in. We've got sidewalks coming on Woodland Shores, from the senior center. I apologize. I don't thinking the maps in my head, but Camp Road. So we've connected basically Camp Road Middle, or the county has, my apologies, from Camp Road Middle to the James Island County Park. They're going down to Woodland Shores. I don't think they're quite getting to Riverland Terrace yet, but I know there's a lot, we want sidewalks everywhere on James Island, but there's some great additions being done along Riverland Drive, Camp Road, Woodland Shores. Yeah.
every piece that gets done is a plus. Yeah,
Yeah,
Councilmember Shealy?
There is still, Councilman, a desire for the pavilion area, a place for some of the younger golfers to go, a grab and go type, little area as far as, food and drink, that type of thing. And, you know, that kind of area, yeah, there's still a desire. There's still some talk about that and something we need to continue talking about. But there's also the idea of improving the clubhouse as well, and making it nicer. To start off with, at least to try to make it nicer with some easy things we can do, but then later actually have, you know, some major things done to the clubhouse to make it nice as well. So I appreciate you asking that.
Thank you.
And they are proceeding with the bathrooms project, right? They
Right.
have 2 restroom facilities.
That's correct.
Yeah. I think that was top priority. Yeah. Top priority. All right. Any more questions for recreation? Councilmember Park?
Well, quickly, just on the golf course, the hawk signal too, big priority, and it's happening. I mean, it's moving along.
I'm sorry, what's that?
The hawk signal.
Oh, good.
Cross.
Yeah, the whole-
I'm not sure what holes, but
Yeah.
Mr. Somerville's been helping a lot in the county, so. Big priority, and I know your neighborhood will love it.
Great. Thank you so much. So next up is our Committee on Community Development, Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, Community Development Committee met on Thursday, May 18th, 3 p.m. And we had 3 different items on the agenda, but nothing that we had to vote on. The first thing on the agenda was a proposal for the African American Renaissance District that was deferred, and that was deferred by the individual, Mr. Bernie Mazik, director there. And then we, on 2, the boards and commission appointment that was explained by Mr. Robert Somerville, and he went into details and explained everything about how these people are appointed to the boards, and everyone in the board is all volunteers. So we had a long discussion about that. So if you have any other information you want to know, you can contact Mr. Somerville on that. And I3 was from Urban League, Mr. Open Meadows. He came and explained to us about certain things on dealing with fair housing and what how that's doing. And he was supposed to bring a presentation, but he will bring the presentation to the next meeting. Now, Mr. Summerfield also said we'll be coming back to council with all the recommendations, telling you exactly how I'll be doing with the volunteers and how volunteers are coming on these different special boards. And that'll be coming back to council and we vote on it then. But so right now, I don't have anything that we have to make any motion or vote on today. That's conclude my.
Sir. Any questions for Councilmember
questions?
Mitchell? All right. Thank you, sir. Next, our Committee on Public Works, Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Committee on Public Works met yesterday at 5 o'clock. We've already recognized great work of Councilman Boyd Gregg on getting Bedford Creek's bridge ramped up, and hopefully that work's gonna start in June, getting most of it done while kids are out of school. And thank all the staff, and it was a lot of staff work. But I'll tell you what, I think we all learned something, because supposedly, I guess, cities don't build bridges, but now we know we can. So thank you again. Councilman Mitchell, King and Hughie Drainage Project, that grant, you know, with ARPA funds, and hopefully the mayor will touch on it shortly. That additional $10 million, that's something you and Councilmember James Lewis, many of y'all may not know this, but the fire station at Hughie Street, kind of King and Hughie, but more on Hughie Street, actually has a John boat to actually, when we have rain events, unsuspecting motorists come to that intersection, they flood out and they can't get out. And our fire station actually has a John boat. Councilman Mitchell says it actually has a motor on it. It actually goes in, get them and ferry them out. That's how deep the water has been. And it's been a problem for a long time. So our stormwater team, the mayor, our legal team, getting these grant dollars and ARPA money and using them more effectively, it's just been frankly, our people ought to get an award for that. A lot of times when large funding comes out of Washington, we always hear about the bridge to nowhere, but you don't hear about the things that are done on a cost-effective basis. And this is going to be a big win-win, this ARPA grant, this $10 million. And the mayor's right. That's 10 million that normally would have come out of our stormwater fees that now can go across 12 different districts. We'll have, and we'll maximize those dollars too. The Cooper Jackson Drainage Project over on the east side of town, kind of behind the East Bay Street post office over there. It gets like a river over there. There are times when it was kind of like it was hopeless, but help is on the way with grant funding like this being applied for. If we don't ask, you certainly won't get. I have to give Mr. Fountain and his team so much credit on these type applications. I mean, 5 years ago, we didn't have these kind of applications. 10 years ago, we didn't have these kind of applications. Councilman Shealy, when you went to our National League of Cities and talked about getting grant writers, and you saw how people were doing them all over the country, that was implemented by mayor and council, and talent like Mr. Fountain and his team have come on, and I can't tell you how that's benefiting our city from a drainage perspective. Approval of Spring Fishburne Drainage Project Phase 5. That's a project, there's no other drainage project like that in the state of South Carolina. I mean, it is not of national proportion. I mean, some of the technology there was used over in the English Channel that we now have over here. Obviously Highway 17 being a major thoroughway, carrying people to and fro Medical University and Roper Hospital Medical District and the like. Shoreham Drive over on James Island, which has been people over there just need help. Again, small, but drainage project there where a house was actually taken down because of flooding, access to a ditch where we didn't have a drainage ditch that we didn't have easements to. And you should see the pictures of the improvements, getting some of the water out of there. Would it fix it entirely? No, but at least progress is being made. And of course, there was an update on Savannah Highway Sideway project. But Mr. Mayor, if you certainly Councilman Mitchell would like to comment on, in particular, King Huji project. But all actionable items passed unanimously, and I so move.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. I think I made my remarks well enough at Ways and Means, but we're so pleased to have those grants, that one in hand and one applied for, that I think we'll get. It's really going to help our efforts a lot over the next couple of years. So next up is our Committee on Ways and Means as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for second reading, I think we got 12 items up. We got a motion to take all 12
Second.
together. Anybody want to break anything out? Councilmember C. Take 7 separately. So we have a motion to approve 1 through 6 and 8 through 12 together.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on any of those? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading on 1 through 7, 1 through 7 and 9 through 12. 1 through 6 and 8 through 12. Right. Sorry about that.
Second on that.
Third reading. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, can I entertain a motion to take number 7?
Move.
All right. And a second, Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm concerned about this annexation on this one. The reason why this being on Beach Ferry Road, obviously it belongs to CPW, Charleston Water. And this little, from my understanding, the reason why we're bringing this into the city is to make it contiguous with the next piece of property to be brought into the city. My understanding is that the way it's currently zoned, it will allow 4 units per acre the way that it's zoned currently. Now, if any of you driven down there, you know, this is like it's like a little horse farm area. It's got a white fence, you know, so it's a larger piece of property that is not this property we're talking about, but the one that will come because this one's being annexed. This piece of property, obviously, there's no real advantage, I guess, to the city. They're not paying taxes there as far as CPW, that type of thing. But what concerns me is, my understanding is that the other piece of property, if it's zoned in under the comprehensive plan, they could put up to 20 units per acre on there. So a developer could come in and could put condos and apartments, could put all this density. And if anybody's been down around Beast Ferry Road and Glen McConnell near the high school and all those areas, I mean, there's just hundreds and hundreds of condos and apartments being built, and traffic is getting worse and worse and worse. And if I don't speak up against this and my constituents see this horse farm going into an apartment or condo complex, and they found out that I voted to bring this into the city where it couldn't have been done in the county, they're going to absolutely want to get me. I mean, I have to bring this up. It's just not fair to the people that have to travel up and down Beast Ferry Road, up and down Glen McConnell Parkway, people in District 5 and District 11, and I'm sorry, not District 11, District 10, and District 2, that anybody that lives west of 526 and has to travel between Beast Ferry and the Mark Clark Expressway sits in this gridlock traffic. And yeah, the roads are being widened over there down Glen McConnell. But the traffic is getting worse and worse and worse. And it's just not fair to the people that live down there for us to keep adding density in the worst traffic areas in the city of Charleston. So I'm going to vote against this annexation because it's going to lead to the other annexation coming up. And it is the only reason it is on the agenda. So, and I'd ask my colleagues to support me in that as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments, questions? Councilman Waring?
Let me ask for clarity, and I may in fact ask Mr. Summerfield to maybe come to the microphone, you know, for some additional information and clarity. This is a parcel of land that CPW is allowed to be annexed to facilitate annexation. Now, the property is currently zoned. The adjoining property where the horse farm was zoned what in the county? Mr. Morgan, if you know.
It's R4, we believe.
And just to get back to Councilman Shealy's concern, in the county right now, how many units per acre would that allow? Okay, 4. Okay. Now, should that property get annexed in the city of Charleston, wouldn't it have to be rezoned?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's the time to have the debate. 20 units per acre, that's just not guaranteed by anybody right now. So I think when that time comes, I really applaud you for bringing that to the floor prior to an annexation that may come. You know, normally we find out about these things when it's on our desk. In this case, this strip has to be annexed, will be annexed. And I will vote for the annexation. But I got to tell you, 20 units an acre, I'm not going to be for that either. Should it come in and want to be annexed? All our colleagues down in that area, Councilman Bowden, Councilman Brady, we don't want that kind of congestion either. So, but when that rezoning, should it come, then I think that's the time to have that debate. So, but I will say this, down on that end of Bees Ferry Road is a goodly amount of development. Now, not the apartments that you're talking about, but the commercial shopping and and Councilman Cheyenne, they even have a new Parker's kitchen on that end. But a lot of that's actually in the county. And it will give our city an opportunity to be contiguous to a couple of properties down there, hopefully to annex, to bring into the city, and some undeveloped property that right now, if we're developing the county, we just have no say so. So, and I think we all do, it's just not me. We all like our planning department, not casting dispersions on the county because we all work together. But there are some congruencies that I think we do a little bit better job of, and I'll hear from that from my friends on county council. So I think the time will come. You put the spotlight on it, and if it does come, I'll be right there with you.
Councilmember Shade.
I just wanted to dovetail a little bit on your comments, Councilman Waring, because the perfect example of non-annexing this property and allowing unannexed property to be governed by the county's code goes through this place on Parsonage Road that was not in the county. And that property that was in the county, and we had developed a partnership with the Public Service District for a fire department to be placed there. And then the other parcel of this land, which was not part of us, but separate, is allowed to be zoned and to be built a structure, and I don't remember the exact details, but it was in direct contradiction of our plan West Ashley, what we had suggested be built there and zoned for. So we lost control over that property. I know Councilman Rappel's involved in this dispute. So annexing these pockets of West Ashley is critically important, so we have some level of consistency. But your point, and you and I discussed that earlier today, that point about allowing that many units on there is something we need to hit the pause button on and say that when at the time comes. So when that happens, I think you will get a lot of support for that part. So let's vote for this in, then we'll wrestle with that other part, because it is important to get these properties in West Ashley, these donut holes closed up.
All right. Any other comments or questions? We do have a motion to approve second reading. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it. Now for third reading and ratification of a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it. So we have no bills up for first reading. We do have one I'm sorry. We voted on the other matters already. Correct. Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, I have a question on the build up for first reading because most of them are deferred. But I'd like to pay attention to number 2 and ask why is that deferred, particularly since some of it's already being implemented by the mayor.
Right. I owe you that one. I need to add, come forward to you. I'll try to the next meeting.
Okay,
to
because because based upon what I've seen,
I
you
sent out
already,
a request. I think I got
Yes.
3 responses, and
Yes.
if that's all I'm going to get, I'll go ahead and come up with those recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
I could have, should have had it by this meeting, but I didn't.
Don't worry about it.
Yes, sir. All right. Next time. So we do have one miscellaneous business item, to go into executive session to discuss the acquisition of a property. Can I entertain a motion to go into executive session? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? So I think we'll just have, the executive session right here in council chambers. And, let's take about a 5-minute break, just, and we'll reconvene with, an executive session.
Some gap in